Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to be breaking down and reacting to our Week 5 AP poll that just came out for our new college football top 25 for the 2024 season. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments about anything, drop them below and I'll make sure to respond. Like I was saying, so we're going to be reacting to the AP poll that just came out, our new top 25. Every week, we go over every single college football game and every NFL game. We look at the money lines, spreads, and the over-unders. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Make sure you follow along with us. It's going to be a great season for both of those sports. So the AP poll just came out. We have a couple differences. So a couple things that have actually changed. Pretty much a lot of the top teams have stayed the same, but let's go ahead and break those down. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have going on. So coming in at number one, we still have the Texas Longhorns. They got 44 first place votes. They are 4-0. They had that win versus ULM. They went 51-3. Arch Manning, he didn't necessarily have the best game. He went 15 of 29, so basically 50% completion percentage. He had 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, but they were pretty much led by their ground game. They have Blue. They have Bond at wide receiver. A legitimate team, a top 5 team, a top 10 offense, top 10 defense, a stacked roster under Steve Sarkisian. Quinn Ewers is still out, so you don't want to put too much into this win. They dominated the game. Arch Manning did not play his best game, but he's technically not the starter, and they still won the game by 48 points. They were massive favorites, though. They beat them the way that they had to beat them. If Arch Manning continues to start a couple games going forward, we will need to see a better performance out of him. But as long as they win the game pretty convincingly, they're not going to be moving because, like I said, he's technically not the starter. Quinn Ewers should be back soon. I have no problem with them being number one. As of right now, they are the number one team with probably the best win. They went to Michigan and they curb stomped the Michigan Wolverines. Coming in at number two, we have Georgia with 13 first place votes. Georgia, last week, they were number one. They had that awful game versus Kentucky, barely beat Kentucky. That dropped them down to 2. Texas jumped them. I have no issue with them being number 2 right now. But for those 13 first place votes, what are you basing that off on? Solely the Clemson game? Because to me, the next 2 games, Georgia didn't play the best. They are 3-0. They had a little letdown in competition. They barely beat Kentucky. That was an awful game. Stoops, if he was more of an aggressive coach, Kentucky wins that game. He's not. Georgia wins it, which is fine. Never apologize for a win. They won the game convincingly. They have a top 3 roster, if not the number 1 roster. But we need to see more out of Carson Beck. We need to see more out of the ground game, the wide receivers, and the offensive line. No issue with them being 3, but obviously they have a massive test coming up because they have Alabama coming up. Whoever wins that game could potentially take over the number 1 spot. Coming in at number 3, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes. They got 5 wins. They obviously had a massive win. They beat Marshall 49-14. The final score makes it look like it was a complete beatdown, but I would honestly say that that game was somewhat close first half because Marshall got a touchdown at the very end of the first half, but Ohio State dominated the game in every facet. They were led by their star. So Will Howard continues to have a pretty decent season. He is leading this team at the quarterback position. You have Quinton Junkins, you have Henderson, you have Egbuka, you have Jeremiah Smith. Their stars showed up on Saturday. They showed how deep this team is. Henderson, Quinton Junkins, that's probably the best 1-2 punch at the running back position. The offensive line continues to hold up. The main thing they need to concentrate on, they have the best defense in all of college football. They finally gave up their first touchdown this Saturday. It was week 4. They are right now sitting at 3-0, 5 first place votes. They need to get a little bit more of a pass rush. Marshall had too much time sitting back there to throw the ball. No issue, though, with the Buckeyes staying at number 3. Coming in at number 4, we have the Alabama Crimson Tide, 3-0. Obviously, they also had the bye week. They have Georgia coming up. Georgia's 2, Bama's 4. Whoever wins that head-to-head matchup could conceivably take over that number 1 spot. That would be perfectly fine. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to dislodge Texas because as long as Texas also shows out, they might stay there. But I would not be surprised with whoever wins that game jumping into that number 1 spot for now, because Texas is going to get to play both of them anyway, so it really doesn't matter how that evens out. But as of right now, Bama, would I have them at 4? I would have honestly probably slid them back on the bye week and slid the number 5 team up. Number 5 team, we have the Tennessee Volunteers sitting at 4-0. They moved up one spot. They had a very close win versus Oklahoma. They won that game 25-15. They got a lot of plays out of their playmakers. Samson, Squirrel White, Nico. But actually the main way they won that game was not due to their offense. They were averaging, 63 points a game? That's not what they averaged this week at Oklahoma versus the Sooners. They actually won this game with their defense. But they've had a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense the whole season. But it shows how rounded this team is. Whenever people think Josh Heupel, they think air raid, spread them out offense. They can throw for 300, they can run for 300. But they also showed that whenever their offense isn't scoring 70, they can actually rely on their defense to win the game. A very well-rounded team. This team is extremely good. Everyone in the SEC in the nation should be on notice. This is a team that's competing for not just the SEC, but a spot in the playoffs. I would have jumped them over Alabama. Why? They barely beat Oklahoma at Oklahoma. Oklahoma got a touchdown in the fourth quarter to make the score look a little closer, but Tennessee actually has a top 25 win. Alabama doesn't. So, yes, I would have jumped Alabama with Tennessee because I think if they played last weekend, Tennessee beats Bama. So, as of right now, to me, they have to be the better team. Alabama, I haven't seen a great game, but they haven't played anyone yet. Now, if they beat Georgia, obviously that's a completely different story. But as of right now, I would have moved Tennessee up 4, Bama slid down to 5, but it's fine. You were on the bye week, so I'm not saying that they're worse than Tennessee, but you were on the bye week, and they beat a top 25 team, so I would have slid them up. Coming in at number 6, moving down one spot, we have Ole Miss 4-0. Ole Miss had a very solid win. They beat Georgia Southern 52-13. Georgia Southern was actually a team that was averaging 30-something points per game. That's a Clay Helton-led team. They can run, they can throw, they have a good offense. Ole Miss continues to show how deep they are. They put all their pieces in the transfer portal. Number 1 transfer portal team. You have Jackson Dart, you have Parrish, you have Trey Harris. They have skill position players at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. They have a great defense. They showed they can play a pretty good offense, shut them down. Lane Kiffin has his sights also set on the SEC championship and the playoffs. There's so many SEC teams. Just when you look at this top 6 here, 5 teams are from the SEC. Not everyone's going to be able to get in the playoffs. So it's going to be a slugfest for those final positions. It's going to be a really fun second half of the season. I have no problem with them sliding back. They had a great win. It's not a knock on the win. It's just Tennessee beat a top 25 team. Coming in at number 7, moving up one spot, the Miami Hurricanes sitting at 4-0. So all these teams are undefeated so far. Miami came up with a thrashing of USF. A lot of people had Miami on upset alert. I did not. I said that Miami was going to win 48-20. They won 50-15. So I was pretty close. Cam Ward, he's probably the Heisman frontrunner right now. If he's not number 1, he's number 2. This team is so deep. You have Cameron Ward, Damian Martinez, Mark Fletcher, you have George, you have Horton, you have Restrepo, you have Arroyo, you have Williams, you have a top 10 offensive line. They've only given up 1 sack this season. You have a top 10 defensive line, a team averaging 51 points a game, only giving up 11 points a game. This is an extremely talented team. By far the front runner in the ACC, but this is a national championship contending team. If people did not think they were prepared, Bama was in a slugfest with USF halfway through the fourth before they rolled off 28 points, beat USF, was it 38-13 or something like that. Miami controlled this game from the second half on, completely dominated, shut them out the whole second half, won it 50-15. Very convincing performance. But once you get into these top 7 teams, things are kind of getting jumbled up here. So it's going to be pretty hard for these teams to keep moving up without someone losing and moving down. Coming in at number 8, the Oregon Ducks. They moved up one spot. They were on a bye week, but obviously their last game, they beat the crap out of Oregon State. They finally showed us the Oregon Ducks that we've been waiting to see. Dylan Gabriel, Stewart, an extremely loaded team, a top 5 roster. They have a top 10 defense, a top 10 offense on paper, but their first game versus Idaho, then Boise State, they were pretty sluggish, but they started to look like they were getting some push versus Oregon State, who's their in-state rival. The offensive line looked like it held up. They could run the ball. They could throw the ball. They were getting push on the offensive line. This is the biggest competition for Ohio State in the Big Ten. This is a playoff caliber team. Coming in at number 9, we had Penn State moving up 3 spots. Moving up 1 spot. They are 1-0. Penn State also had a very convincing win. They beat Kent State 56-0. Kent State's probably the worst team in the FBS right now. So that's not a great win, but you shut them out. You beat them as bad as you could have beat them. I don't actually think they hit the spread. I think the spread was like 60 something, which is pretty high. But either way, that's still, no, actually, they did hit the spread. The spread was 59. So they barely made it, but that's all perfectly fine. A very talented team. Drew Waller, Singleton. One of the better 1-2 running back combos. Their defense looked a lot better since that Bowling Green disaster. This is a team 10-2 every single season. If they go 10-2 this year coming out of the Big Ten, they're going to make the playoffs. Coming in at 11, 4-0, moving up 2 spots, the Utah Utes. A lot of people say, why is Utah top 10? They barely beat Oklahoma State. That was without Cam Rising. Cam Rising was actually supposed to play this game up till Saturday morning. Then they started Wilson. But he showed out. Their running game with Bernard, they were able to run the ball on Oklahoma State. Their defense is extremely loaded, physical at the line of scrimmage. Kyle Whittingham, one of the most underappreciated head coaches, the 3rd longest tenured head coach in the country. This team is very deep. This team is very strong. Look what they did without Cam Rising. Once Cam Rising comes back, their offense gets moons better. So they're the front runner in the Big 12 right now, and they pretty much as of right now, as long as they keep cruising, they kind of have a playoff spot on lockdown so far. Coming in at number 11, falling 4 spots, finally, the Missouri Tigers, undefeated 4-0. I've been saying all season long, this team is overrated. I'm not knocking this team in any way whatsoever. I think I predicted them to go 10-2 in my prediction video. Very talented team. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They had a very balanced offense. You have Cook had 230 yards. Noel had 199 yards rushing. Burden continues to perform 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. They had a top 30 offense last season, a top 30 defense. However, they do not have what it takes to me to beat any of these top 10 teams when healthy. Why were they moved up to 6 or 7? That makes absolutely no sense. They barely beat a average Boston College team and they jumped them up. That's not acceptable. They went into overtime with Vanderbilt, who missed 2 chip shot field goals, and they finally win. They won 30-27 or something like that. That's not good enough. Finally, the AP voters took some notice, dropped the Tigers a couple bit. I'm not saying they're bad at all. They have a very easy schedule. They can sleepwalk to 10-2, potential shot at the playoffs. But as of that moment, as of this week, they're not deserving of a top 10 position right now. Coming in at number 12, 3-1, moving up 6 spots. This makes Texas look even better. Like I said, this is the best win of the year when Texas beat Michigan at Michigan. Michigan beat USC at Michigan. That was, USC lost that game. Michigan didn't win it, but never apologized for a win. But USC gave it to him on a silver platter. Mullings, when he broke up that run, spun, took it for like 76 yards, got them in the red zone, and they scored. But they won this game with like, I think it was like 36 or 26 yards passing. Never apologized for a win, but let's be honest. That's pathetic. It's fine. You beat USC Trojans. That's not going to get you very far, though. Yes, it saved your season from being kind of a hot mess, being the defending national championships. But Sharon Moore, you need to figure something out because Alex Orji cannot throw the ball to save his life. You got lucky. You beat USC. You can't rely on luck going forward, going into Big Ten play. Those teams are going to muscle you. They are going to line up with you at the line of scrimmage, especially the Buckeyes. You're not going to beat the Buckeyes with 36 or 26 passing yards. Warren, he starts, he throws 3 picks. Orji starts, he has 36 passing yards. I don't know what they're going to do at the quarterback position, but their offense is still a complete travesty. Solid defense, physical team. I don't know if they're going to stay at this ranking. By the time that this season ends, they're probably going to find themselves 22-25. Coming in at 13, USC 2-1. They dropped 2 spots. Perfectly fine with them falling. They lost to a very highly ranked team. They went down to the final play of the game. USC went on the road. Lincoln Riley, if you don't start out this game 14-0 with a couple bad decisions, you easily win this game. You lost the game, but you showed how far USC's come, how improved their defense is. Without that running from Mullings, you win the game. This team, this defense led by D'Anton Lynn, a massive improvement, especially tackling. Outside of that play, the tackling was perfect. Miller Moss, he had just under 300 yards, but he threw like 50-something times. The wide receivers have to play a little better, but Michigan has a great defense. Massive improvements for USC. I'm perfectly fine with them only falling 2 spots. Number 14, LSU, moving up 2 spots. They're 3-1. I don't agree with that at all. Yes, they beat UCLA, but the game should not have been close at halftime the way that it was. Garbers, the Bruins quarterback, not a good quarterback at all. This is back-to-back games that LSU has just completely started out slow, train wrecked the whole first half, finally picks things up second half. That's fine, but this is 2 unranked teams. This is South Carolina. This is UCLA, who's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. And you move up 2 spots. We have to penalize these teams for playing like crap. Still, LSU run games look good. Nussmeier looks good. Wide receiver core great. A great offensive line. But the defense played really well game 1 versus USC, but it's been taking a step back versus Nichols, South Carolina, and versus the Buins. They need to get more production out of that defensive side of the ball. They need to get more stops. And the offense needs to not wait to the second half to start scoring some points. Coming in at 15, Louisville, 3-0, moving up 4 spots. Louisville had that win versus Georgia Tech. I'm not going to lie, I actually picked Georgia Tech to get the upset win. Louisville pulled it off. It was close first half, not close second half. Props to Jeff Brom and his team. Jeff Brom knows how to work the portal, but more importantly, he knows how to build his team to his players' strengths. He adapts his scheme to what's on his roster. This is, as of right now, the second best team in the ACC. You have Miami, Louisville, Clemson. They're fighting over that 2 spot, but Louisville, keep doing what you're doing, and you are going to find yourself back in the ACC championship game. Coming in at 16, Notre Dame, 3-1. They moved up 1 spot. Not an impressive win versus Miami of Ohio. Notre Dame won 28-3. It's a win. You'll take it after that MAC performance letdown versus NIU. You have to blow out these teams. Notre Dame cannot go 10-2 this season. You're not going to make the playoffs because you don't have a national conference championship game because you're an independent. You must go 11-1. You already have a bad loss. NIU lost. They're out the top 25. So now you lost to an unranked MAC team that doesn't look good. And then you beat Miami of Ohio 28-3 at home. Riley, he had 150 yards. He led the game running 143. They have a good run game. They have Love at running back. Riley can run the ball, but Riley still can't throw the ball. I've said since he was at Duke, this guy can't throw the ball. He still can't throw the ball. That's not going to help you. If you do make the playoffs and you pay a team with a great defense, they're going to shut you down because Riley can't throw past 5 yards, and he's not even accurate up to 5 yards. They have a decent wide receiver core. We know they have a great defense under Al Golden, but we need to figure out something on the offensive side. That's what Denbrock does, but he's very limited with a quarterback who can't throw. I'm fine with them moving up, but I would have also been fine with you moving them down 1 spot too. Coming in at 17, Clemson, 2-1, moving up 4 spots. Clemson put a beat down on NC State through the first 3 quarters, and then NC State rattled off 21 points in garbage time versus the second and third string. But Clemson won 59-35 versus NC State. The score looks like Clemson gave up way too many points, but like I said, a lot of that was garbage time. But it makes you kind of wonder about their second and third string, but it's fine. They are second and third string players. Clemson, to me, even with Louisville playing well, they're the second best team in the ACC. They're the only team that can really challenge Miami. Clemson has the number 9 roster according to ESPN. They have Clay Kubnik, Maffa. The offense looks a lot better since that Georgia debacle. They look a lot more comfortable in year 2 under Riley. Dabo, strong team here. They have a top 10 defense. That's what's going to keep them in a lot of these games. That's what's going to give them a shot to potentially try to compete with Miami. If they played today, I would go with Miami, but the Clemson offense seems to be getting better every single week right now. Coming in at 18, Iowa State 3-0, moving up 2 spots. Iowa State put a whooping on Arkansas State. They won that one 52-7. Props to them. We know they have a good run game. We know they have a very solid offense. Matt Campbell always has a disciplined team. They run downhill. They're physical. They play defense. And they're showing that they're one of those teams that you need to watch coming out of the Big 12 right now. Coming in at 19, the Illinois Fighting Illini, 4-0, moving up 5 spots. Definitely deserving of moving up 5 spots. They beat Nebraska at Nebraska. Dylan Raiola beat him when it mattered. This team with Altmaier at quarterback, he was throwing the ball. He had some very big passes in the fourth quarter when they were down, when they needed first downs. He made them. Brent Bielema at the head coach. Very, very solid physical defense. Is this a team that I think can win the Big Ten? No. Can they compete for a playoff spot? I don't think so. But you got to watch them because now they're kind of a wild card Big Ten team that if you're an outlier Big Ten team trying to make the playoffs, if you don't take them serious, they're going to beat you on any given Saturday. So those Penn States, Buckeyes, Ducks, this is one of those teams coming out of the Big Ten that if you play them during the regular season, you better take that game serious because their defense will keep them in any game. Coming in at 20, Oklahoma State, 3-1, falling 6 spots. Perfectly fine with them. I don't know what happened to Ollie Gordon. He's completely disappeared, though. He's the Doak Award winner from last season. 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns. He's not doing anything. He's running for 50, 60 yards a game. Their offensive line, they had a top 10 offensive line experience-wise. Bowman, I've been saying all year he was averaging 350 yards passing. I said, I'm not buying it at all. He's like an 8th-year senior starter. He's never been a good quarterback to me. It finally showed on this past Saturday. He actually got benched at one point. The guy's not good. Yes, he has a couple flares when he produces the ball, but the only time he ever actually wins games was due to plays from his skill position players and due to Ollie Gordon last season running for 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns. That's a quarterback best friend is that kind of running back, the best running back in the country. But Ollie Gordon's completely taken a step back, but maybe everyone's just dialing up on Oklahoma State's run game so much that it's allowed a lot of open pass for Bowman to be able to throw the ball, but not Utah. Physical defense, physical defensive line. They pressured him. He made mistakes, played awful, could not beat Utah with a backup quarterback in. It's not a good look. Coming in at 21, Oklahoma 3-1, falling 6 spots. You know, they played hard. They kept the game respectable Saturday. I said that they would lose under 10. Great game. Jackson Arnold, you know, he got pulled at one point. I don't know what to make of him yet. He didn't necessarily have a great bowl game when he filled in for Dylan Gabriel. He had a great week 1, but their offense has been sputtering since then. Defense kept the game close on Saturday, but the offense was not able to get first downs. I don't know if it's Seth Luttrell's system. I don't know if it's Jackson Arnold. He has not lived up to the hype so far, though. But Oklahoma has they have the number 11 roster according to ESPN. So you don't doubt the talent there. Brent Venables, great defense. They are pretty banged up right now. They have a lot of injuries. The defense kept the game close. Tennessee has a great defense. But a lot of questions are about Jackson Arnold. First season in the SEC, Jackson Arnold has shown 3 straight games not able to get the offense clicking. Now you're getting into SEC play every single week. So it kind of is a little bit of a warning light right now that if he doesn't get it going at some point, you could find yourself 6-6, 7-5. Coming in at number 22, welcome to the top 25, BYU 4-0. They were not ranked last season. They put a whooping on Kansas State. Game was not close. Was it 38-9? They beat them bad, did not give up a touchdown. Props to BYU. Solid performance coming out of the Big 12. I said last week, something does not feel right about this game. Kansas State, Avery Johnson, young quarterback, going to the mountains, going to BYU, playing them at home. They were undefeated. You were undefeated. Something just seemed... The Big 12 is a very weird conference because there's a lot of teams that are very similar to one another. They're very top-heavy. Not saying that there's a world beater up there, but there's a lot of decent teams. You know they're going to pummel and beat up one another. Last week seemed like it was BYU's turn, and they whooped Kansas State. welcome to the top 25. It's pretty cool to see them in there. Coming in at 23, Kansas State 3-1, dropping 10 spots after their loss to BYU. They did not deserve to get knocked out of the top 25. Perfectly fine with them being at number 23. They need to get a couple things right. They had a top 30 offense last season. They had a top 30 defense. They have Giddens at running back. They have Avery Johnson, the highest recruited quarterback ever in Kansas State history. But he's young. He runs the ball with purpose. He can throw the ball. Awful performance versus BYU. Don't look too much into it. He's a young player. He will use that as a building block, continue to get better. This is still one of those teams that has a chance to compete for the Big 12 and thus the playoffs. Coming in at 24, Texas A&M 3-1. They moved up one spot. I would have dropped them right out of the top 25. So they beat Bowling Green 26-20. I said it would be a one possession game. Not impressed with the Aggies. Yes, Wegman's gone. Reed's there. They beat Florida. They beat Bowling Green. Bowling Green took Penn State to the final possession. That was a one possession loss. And then they almost beat the Aggies. So Bowling Green, if you just would have taken one of those, would have been awesome. If you took both of them, you would be undefeated right now and ranked. But they played the Aggies very close. But the Aggies, what have you shown to be a top 25 team? Yes, you have a top 10 roster talent-wise. Mike Elko, great coach. They have a great defense coordinator, great offensive coordinator. Reed has shown that he can throw it, run it, but you have no great win. You beat Florida by 2 possessions, which isn't a great win. You beat Bowling Green by 6 points. Bowling Green, and you're in the top 25. I don't necessarily see that. You have to penalize them. They were 25. They barely beat Bowling Green. There's nothing wrong with just dropping them to 26, but whatever. Coming in at 25, Boise State, a team that I've said should have been ranked since the beginning of the season. Boise State 2-1, solid game. They have Janty at running back, who some are saying he's the best running back in the country. I think he has like 9 or something rushing touchdowns through the first 3 games. Very talented team on the Smurf turf. They almost beat Oregon. Talented team. Their defense leaves a lot to be desired. Almost every game is going to be a shootout. They played Portland State this past weekend, beat the crap out of them. Talented team. One of those teams that could compete for a group of 5 playoff spot. I'd rather they get it than another team. Boise State's been a team that's been in the national spotlight for a long time. They deserve to get a playoff spot if they continue to win. If they put together a 10-2, 9-3 season, then they could be that group of 5 team that would be represented in the playoffs. So that's our top 25. Some of the teams that just barely are on the outside. Washington State, 67 votes. They're 4-0 undefeated. If they make it to 5-0, they're going to find themselves in the top 25 next week. Then you have Indiana, who's 4-0 also. Big Ten has some pretty decent teams that no one was looking at, but they're starting to make themselves known now. Boston College, 55 votes. They're just on the outside, 3-1. They lost to Missouri, took them to the wire, though. Still a very talented team. Then Pitt, Nebraska, Iowa. A lot of these teams, if they continue to win, they will make the top 25. The main ones that stand out to me, Washington State and Nebraska and Iowa. Those are the 3 just outliers that you got to keep your eye on because they're teams that have been ranked before, teams that have big brands, teams that have pretty easy schedules coming up. Mainly Nebraska actually has a pretty easy Big Ten schedule this year. So they could easily find themselves at 8 or 9 wins this season. But that's our breakdown. That's our reaction to the Week 5 college football top 25 that just came out. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thank you.